Prince Frankie, say hello. Say hello. Did you have a good morning? Not yet. We have not gone out on our morning walk yet. Too much going on. But we did make it through the weekend, didn't we? Yay! 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 Oh, look at those ears move. Wow! Yeah. I don't usually use that tone, do I? Oh, look at that sweet face. Look at that sweet face. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so we made it through the weekend. We'll talk about a little bit about giving up or suicidal ideation. Not so much suicide itself, because there's a big difference between suicidal and suicidal ideation. Suicidal is when somebody really wants out. It's like they're reading a book and they finished it and they decided they're done. And they will do what it takes to not be interrupted to start their next chapter, which would be death. Some people do it slowly on purpose, sort of subconsciously on purpose. Does that make sense? When they're alcoholics. Not all alcoholics are suicidal, but some people do that. They drink like they're killing themselves. They drink with no real concern with consequences, and they invite death because they don't want to slice their wrists or hang themselves or shoot themselves, so they will do it as gently as possible with alcohol, for example. Some people are not what I call suicidal. They are what I call suicidal ideation, which means they think about suicide a lot. They think about, they're so mad at the world or so mad at somebody that they will kind of almost threaten themselves with suicide. Well, if I weren't here, I wouldn't have to deal with all this mess. You're kind of noisy back there with that right now, right in my head. There are people who will think about, for example, they'll be driving down the highway and they'll see an embankment and they'll think, I could just drive right into that embankment or off the side of this bridge. That's an example. They'll go hiking and they won't jump, of course, or drive into the embankment, but they'll think, what if I just fell off of the side of this cliff? There are people who do dangerous activities, high-risk activities, skydiving, submarine, underwater exploration, space exploration, hunting, safaris. Most people aren't thinking suicidal ideation, but it's almost like they're inviting death, and then they're in control because they could almost choose whether or not. And for the people who have serious suicidal ideation that is just plaguing them, and it's making them depressed, and they don't really want to commit suicide, they just don't know how to live. They don't want to die, but they don't want to live. That's suicidal ideation. They just can't quite figure out how to get out of the swamp. It's like they just don't want to commit suicide, but they don't know how to live. That's what I'm talking about. So when we're in that boat, I can tell you that it's not easy to get out of it. But you can if you want to do the work. From my experience of working with people for a very long time, the big deal is being able to, this is just CeraVe lotion I put in a little jar, is that it's hard to change narrow pathways. That's why a lot of people, even though they've been clean and sober for a while, go back to drinking, because their brain still sees it as an option. Until the person is dedicated enough that their commitment is overpowering their new neural pathways. Their new commitment is more powerful than their old commitment to keep drinking. Does that make sense? So, there are a lot of people who think they need a reason to live. So a lot of people kind of miss the boat helping depressed people. Some depressed people. That works for some people. Some people bounce it. They're not in my office very long. Some people, you can point out all the things they have to live for, and all of a sudden a light pops off. Or they'll get in a new relationship, and the light, that suicidal ideation light will pop off, and a new light will pop on. Some people will get a job or a promotion or win a trip, whatever. But there are some people who, seriously, their neural pathways are there. And even if they get something new, as soon as that new thing goes away, because everything's temporary, they go right back to thinking their life is worthless. Why bother? Yep. So, that's where neural pathways come in. There was an old Nike marketing concept, whatever, lost my word, sorry, campaign, that was just do it with a swish. Just do it. Check it off your list. Just do it. I love that. I loved that. Well, it's true. Athletes know it. People who are committed to finishing a project know it. Sometimes you have to turn off the voice that says, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Which can be in your bones. And decide, I'm going to do this because this experiment means more to me than giving up. Means more to me than sitting in my swamp. You have to be dedicated. That's the problem, is humans are programmed, their brain is programmed to help their human find an easier, softer way. The problem is, old behavior is an easier, softer way. So your brain takes over and you think, oh, I'm just programmed like this. No, you accidentally got programmed like that. Your brain, like a computer, was fed a virus. Does that make sense? I don't know. Gotta understand that you have to get in that computer and change things up, or nothing changes. If you have a virus in your computer, well, back in the old days, I don't know about it anymore. I'm not a computer person. Who knows what's changed? But back in the day, if you had a virus in your computer, hi baby, you're stuck with a computer that you might as well throw away unless you get an expert. Well, in this case, the expert is you. You can talk to a therapist all day long. But if you're not willing to work, the only thing your therapist is able to do is hold your hand while you're going through the process of your ups and downs and ins and outs, or your numbness, or your threats, and they have to do the next right thing. They just deal with your virus and work around it, your brain virus. Right? Does that make sense? So, if you want to change which shoe you put on first every morning, notice you put a shoe on first every morning. The same, left or right. If you don't have two legs, think about whether you put your arms in first or your head in first, right? I'm just saying your brain has an easier, softer way on even the smallest things. So, practice for 10 days. Now, 2 weeks. So the first 2 days, you just notice you do have a pattern. And if you are tricking yourself just to prove me wrong accidentally, and you trade off, do it 3 days in a row and you'll see which one you actually put on first. Then, for the next 10 days, challenge yourself to do the opposite. I guarantee you, your brain will go through with a grieving process, a withdrawal process. At first, it's going to go, oh, this is breezy, the honeymoon stage, right? Or it's like a domestic violence cycle. Yeah, I'm sorry. So there's a honeymoon stage where you're like, oh, this is easy, big deal. And then you'll go through a stage where it starts getting agitating. It'll be like, oh, this is stupid. Why am I doing something so simple? Why am I even wasting my time thinking about this? And they'll be like, screw her. I don't want to have to do this. This is stupid. I quit. And some people push themselves through that phase to the exhaust stage, where it's like, okay, fine, I see your point, right? I challenge you. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. I have a light load today because I worked all weekend. So I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to wear my mauve lipstick. Just for fun. I've been wanting to do this for a while. How about that? I'm going to use this brush that I don't even really like. But it has stiff bristles, so I can make quick work of it. Really stiff bristles. Because I have so much pink here, I don't put blush on purpose past the edge of my pupil. So it'll be right here. See? The edge of my pupil. Anyway, so if you want to stop thinking about the driving down the highway, and thinking about the embankment, that was fun. Oh, don't leave that. You have to be able to train your neural pathways to say, I'm not thinking about that today. Stop thought, change thought. Stop. I'm driving down the road. I see the embankment. I think the same thing. Oh, I could crash into that and end it all. Even though I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. But it's a program. That's suicidal ideation. Okay, so that's where as soon as you have that thought, or as soon as you see the embankment and the thought hasn't even really surfaced yet, that's when you go, oh, what a beautiful day. Oh, I'm so glad I'm driving. Oh, I'm so glad my car's running well. Oh, fill in the blank. Oh, blueberries. Right? You have, see, and the reason why a lot of people don't take this homework seriously is because they've gotten so bitter and jaded and isolated that they feel alone. Like they are so unique that simple things won't work. It has to be complicated. It has to be some kind of fancy EMDR training that lasts weeks with somebody else's guidance and electroshock or whatever. It's not true. You can do these things at home. You can do these right going down the street. You do it on a walk. You can have a therapist guide you and give you this information and support you and kind of what I sometimes refer to, I don't tell clients this, but kind of love them through it to give them enough support and care and a little bit of faith that just because they want to please me, they'll do their homework once in a while, not always. I wish. So then when they see results, their confidence gets built up, and then they're not doing it for me anymore and sometimes I'm a bully. I'm like, if you're not doing your homework, you're not going to feel better, so what do you need me for? I hardly ever say that, but I have said it. Doesn't usually get me anywhere to play tough guy. I'm kind of tough without trying hard, so kind of obnoxious more than tough. Yeah, I got a mouth on me. I think that's my biggest curse. I sound meaner than I am sometimes. I mean, I'm not really mean. I don't know why I sound like that. It's kind of like when I first met my first New Yorker, I thought, damn. I don't know. So anyway, if you don't do the homework, it's not going to work. It's the same. It's not just for suicidal ideation. It's for any kind of depression. You have to be willing to challenge yourself to push through. Instead of what I call folding over and giving in, going that way on your usual, you have to be able to stand up for yourself and do it whether you feel like it or not. Like when I'm depressed, now it's situational and it's temporary. But for a while, well, several different times in my life, I had such what I would call abandonment issues that I would just spiral in such a deep depression of feeling rejected and worthless. I mean, I knew I had an education. I knew I had an awesome resume. I knew I had some really cool friends, but I was never anchored enough in myself. God, if a friend didn't want to go out with me, I felt rejected, right? So when you're messing with neural pathways that are that seriously ingrained, you have to work hard. Okay. So now I'm going to find some powder. Kind of blend all this. Oh, I love powder pressure. So here's what you can do. If you want to try an experiment, do the head or arms first, left or right leg first. And that'll give you a little bit more insight as to how stubborn your neural pathways are so that you can challenge yourself. Whether it's overeating, because the message shouldn't be, and you'll know this by the time I got through my bag of Oreos, it's who cares? At least I'm comforting myself. Who cares? At least, I'm not completely alone, is really what the brain is saying. Instead of saying, wow, these don't even taste good anymore. And I'm still munching. I could go get some celery or some gum or go to bed. It's late. By the time I'm eating a big old bag of Oreos, it's way past bedtime, right? So see what it is that you're thinking about, so you know how to correct it. Okay? This is an experiment, because I know that when I was coming out of my depression, and the reason why they don't... Hey, that's enough. You have been a noisy boy today. I had to double down so many times to work through depression. It doesn't just work the first time. You have to be dedicated and committed. Dedicated and committed. And if you can't do that, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't work. You can go to all the therapists you want. You can get all the medication you want to kind of numb you down, but I can tell you, if you don't change your neural pathways, you're not going to change your way of thinking. And I'm passionate about it. And that's why I push my clients sometimes kind of hard. Why they keep coming back, I don't know. Because I'm kind of mean. But I think it was Judy or Jeanette, I was saying, I preach what I most need to know. I preach what I need to live. I just love the feedback that I get from y'all. I really do. I really appreciate it. I'm feeling... One of the reasons why I like working with people who are suicidal or going through the death transition is because it helps me recognize life. I need more color than that. Right? There are people who are living who aren't really living. And that was me. I wasn't really living. I was so depressed and down on life, seeing it as worthless, floating around on a planet with no real purpose, because I could not feel loved. I could not feel loved. And I could not be in a healthy, committed relationship. I kept trying, but I didn't know how, and I certainly didn't know how to pick them. You put me in a room full of healthy people with one person who is a bad boy. Guess who I'm picking? Right? So, that's why it takes work. And that's why I got dedicated to it. Because I thought, if I kill myself, I kind of hope I'm reincarnated. So I come back with a different family, a different mom and dad, right? A different sister and brother. Someone who's going to love me and appreciate me. And also maybe with a better personality so that I attract people of more loving personality. I mean, I just have a quirky personality. I can't keep my mouth shut. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, right? So I thought if I died, there was a chance that the reincarnation story might work. That would be awesome for me. I decided through some kind of, I don't know if I read it somewhere or if it just came to me. But then it was like, wait a minute. If I'm willing to kill myself, if I were willing to kill myself, like I thought I was getting to be, it was in my fantasy to just bow out, then why go through all the hassle of killing myself when I could just start my life over right now? I've never gone hungry. Whoopsie. I knew how to move. I knew how to stop a relationship. I knew how to get another job. Yep. I just made a mess out of my eyebrow. So that's how the experiment began. I decided to experiment. I'm trying to define my eyebrow a little bit. But I keep making a bigger mess. What in the world? So anyway, I'm just taking my lightest powder, that CoverGirl, pale, fair, whatever it's called, going around my eyebrows. Now, do I need to reblend here a little bit? Just a little bit. Okay. So whether you have suicidal ideation, or you're depressed, either way, you can't get out of it if you're not willing to challenge your neural pathways. And you can start with putting left or right on. I'd like you to do that. I don't know if that mauve is enough. I think I'll just put a little bit more right here. Oh, I've got so much paper to work to do from over the weekend. Dang. I did a little bit as I went along. Bullet points, mostly. So what I'm doing now is I'm tubing my mascara. So if someone's suicidal, then yeah, we got a problem. I've worked with clients that are or have been. I've only lost, knock on wood, I used to brag that I hadn't lost anybody, but that changed about 10 years ago. Oh man, I'm so grateful for the support I had to go through that. It really burst my bubble. Really burst my bubble. I'm gonna tell you why. This was one who knew the ropes because of so many threats in the past. And so many trial runs. Some people do enough suicidal threats to get attention. And then not. And if they get if they're successful in getting the attention they want, it still doesn't change the way that they relate to people. That's why it's hard work. That's why I'm telling you, it's hard work if you want to get well. So this person went through so many ups and downs, successes of getting their way over and over again until the threats just didn't keep the relationships anymore. I finally cut some tendrils here. Hey, you're noisy. You're noisy. Frankie, would you please stop that for now? Thank you. God. And I think there's a point where people who are suicidal cross over from suicidal ideation, where they think, oh, I should die, oh, I should die. That's a problem. That's where I come in, as I try to convince them one way or another through our work together to reincarnate themselves without dying by deciding to start life over while they're here. Long story short. But some people will practice hypnotizing themselves with the option of having suicidal ideation so often that when they finally hit a dead end road in the direction they feel like they need to be, even though they've tried it several times and it's not successful, instead of trying something different, they decide, okay, I guess it's finally over. And, excuse me, they'll do it one last time, deciding, yes, I'm ready to die. If someone catches me, it better because they're serious about taking over my life and changing it for the better. And so they're taking a gamble, a really high gamble. That's why there's a lot of accidental suicides. A lot. Yeah. I've worked with, I can think of two right off the bat who had a lot of suicidal ideations, and they'd get so mad they'd threaten suicide, and they would go and set it up and cause enough brain damage through asphyxiation or through chemicals that the one had wet brain and one had enough oxygen cut off to the brain that their lives were never the same. It was sad, sad, sad. It's really too bad. But think about this. Tighten in on this. If you're someone who needs to hear this, understand the trade-off between being reincarnated right here, right now, changing your life, changing the locks, changing your address, changing your attitude. You don't have to change your attitude or your relationships as far as whether you still have them or not, but your attitude. It's like change your address or change your attitude, right? Get a different job. Move away from a stressful environment. There are other places to live. And if you go to some communities, I mean, there's so much free stuff. If you tell them you're homeless and living out of your car, they're going to roll out the red carpet. They don't know if you're living in an apartment in New York or California or Florida or wherever it is. I'm just saying, I'm not saying cheat the system. I'm just saying I'd rather you do that than commit suicide and not attempt this life thing one more good time with your actual backbone, dedication, commitment to your life, not your life with someone, something else, right? That's one of the reasons why with my resume, that wasn't going to keep me from committing suicide. It meant nothing to me. My low self-esteem won out every time. That's why when I met a therapist who was a lot like me, only nicer, I wish I had her to act in class, I realized I had no commitment. I wanted other people and places to commit to me, but I didn't have the commitment. I gave up 100 times a day, either with my attitude or just not participating fully. And that's why when I work with people who have suicidal ideation, I can usually get them to admit that that's how they treat life as well. Because that's what the math says. Add up the math, right? So I'd prefer people to not commit suicide. On my watch anyway. Gosh. And suicidal ideation, I know, is so painful and lonely that there is work that needs to be done. And it can be done. I can tell you this. House or no house, car or, well, I'd at least like to have a car to sleep in. I'd hate to have to not wake up from my depression or confusion until I don't even have a car. But I'm telling you, any relationship is able to be let go of. House, money. I've already been sick with losing those things. I don't think I've very often been without a car. Anyway, I know that my commitment is to me, to me and my adventure on this planet, and that's what we work on. And if you're feeling that way, get your therapist to help you work on that. Get a therapist who isn't hypnotized by your adorableness or your handicaps. Get a therapist that sees you as a human being who's trying to be committed. Not committed. Who's trying to be self-disciplined. Right, Frankie? Right? Okay, that's strong talk. But that's, what I needed to vent about today. So you have a great day. Know I'm thinking about you. And if you're having a good day, and if you're not depressed anymore, if you're not angry and isolated anymore, or sad or numb anymore, and you're living your life, yay. I'm so happy. Anyway, Love you. Bye for now.